There's a place that's a cross between Never Never Land and the island in the book Lord of the Flies. It's a planet that looks a lot like Earth, with a ruined city whose only inhabitants appear to be children. When the crew of the Enterprise beams down, they discover that adults are mistrusted, and in the case of Captain Kirk, even beaten in the most chilling scene. Like Lord of the Flies, Miri is not so much a story about the cruelty of children as it is a mirror held up to the world of adults and our social order. Who belongs and who doesn't? Why do we exclude some people and not others? What myths and fables do we concoct to make others seem less acceptable? These are really basic social prejudices that we learn in childhood and practice among schoolmates, friends, and even those we work with. Now, let's meet Miri.
I think it's Janice Rand, the young, innocent Janice Rand, who was brought aboard on her first assignment and was introduced to this wonderful captain.
Excuse me, sir. It's past time you had something to eat.
And the crew, and she had her duties to perform, and she wanted to be good.
What the devil is this? Green leaves?
It's dietary salad, sir. Dr. McCoy ordered your diet card changed. I thought you knew.
And she wanted to be perfect, and she liked the captain, and
Thank you, Yo.
she was torn between her emotions, and she grew. The costume, the beautiful hair, and I had to constantly look that it was in place. You know, sometimes it was just kind of off plumb, you know. It would slip because it was very heavy. So Bill Tice, costume designer, and another hairdresser, and me went to a house in North Hollywood with these two huge wigs from Max Factor. Heavy blonde hair, heavy. And they put a cone on my head and put the hair on it and tried to find different ways of weaving it and putting it on the cone and putting the shape of it and how it would look when it was loose. When it was loose, it was beautiful. It was just lots of hair. And yet it had great height. It was kind of almost like a Dream of Jeannie kind of thing, you know, with this high, except that there was nothing on top of it. It was just really hair. And it was heavy, and it was really her signature. I mean, without that hair, I am practically unrecognizable. That hair put me on the map. And then the red uniform, of course. And but that was Bill Tice, all the way, Bill Tice. William Ware Tice, a genius.
You may see a couple of familiar faces in this episode. Kim Darby, who plays Miri, appeared opposite John Wayne in the Western classic True Grit. She and I co-starred in the sci-fi film The People. And Michael J. Pollard, who plays John, was in Bonnie and Clyde. And my two daughters have cameos in this episode. I'm carrying one of them, Elizabeth, in my arms at the very end. Watch for her. It's better than me showing you the baby pictures.
I won't hurt you.
Don't hurt me.
Come on.
Don't hurt me. Don't, please. We won't hurt you, sweetheart. No, we're friends. No, shh.
Well, I kind of am prone to like Miri. Miri, my two children were in Miri. They were 7 and 9, and they stole the communicator so we couldn't get back to the ship. So they came to my house to pick up the kids that morning in a limo. They wouldn't let me drive the kids in because of insurance purposes. So they sent a big black limo out to my house in Sherman Oaks and picked up the kids. And the kids got in this car, and they were looking out the back window and waving at me, and I was in my old Buick coming down the freeway behind them. And then they signed their release and signed their little contract, you know, and got their Social Security numbers, one number apart. So it was a thrill. They loved the set. Of course, the shows, none of them had aired yet, so they didn't know who Spock was. They didn't know who Shatner, who Captain Kirk was. They didn't know who anybody was. So I like Miri because, and also Janice Rand was beamed down, and she was with the team, and she got the disease.
Captain, look at my legs.
So she was able to be very dramatic about getting the disease and pulling her uniform and looking at me. Captain, you know, she really got a chance to act instead of just react.
We're all frightened.
And then Miri got very jealous, and then they captured me and tied me up.
It's not funny. It's a Foley. What are you going to do with me?
You think I'd tell you?
And these kids were all in there, and I didn't know what they were going to do with me. So I had a lot of drama. And then at the end, when Miri had to stay on the planet, you know, I felt for her. I really felt for her. And it was very tender, very tender.
We're a culture obsessed with youth. We try to look young, act young, and some people will do anything to maintain it. Miri explores what can happen when this kind of thinking gets out of hand. What if we experimented with biological changes so we could remain young forever? Imagine your grandparents looking the same age as you. This theme of attempting to subdue the natural order of things, of trying to override the forces of nature, is one that Star Trek would revisit many times.
Hi, I'm Michelle Nichols, and you're watching Star Trek on the Sci-Fi Channel.
J.M. Barrie created Peter Pan's world of Never Never Land, where I won't grow up was both mantra and rule. What if such a place existed? What would nearly eternal childhood be like? Almost idyllic, don't you think? No cares, no worries, centuries of uninterrupted play, with no grown-ups around to discipline and scold. But what if prolonged childhood had a price when you finally did grow up? And that price was death. Doesn't sound so idyllic anymore, does it? Such is the world of Miri. An episode like Miri was always a nice change of pace for myself and the rest of the Star Trek cast. You see, most of the time we were confined to the interior sets built on sound stages at Desilu Pictures. Because this episode took place on a planet that was supposed to be similar to Earth, it gave us a chance to get out into the fresh air, onto the backlot streets of the studio in Culver City. It was quite refreshing and liberating. By the way, keep an eye out for the little girl that Captain Kirk picks up in his arms toward the end of this episode. If it seems that he holds her in an almost paternal way, it's because she's actually Bill Shatner's daughter. We should think twice before trying to alter the course of nature. The scientists that brought a plague down on Miri's planet didn't realize the implications of their actions and ended up destroying the very civilization that they were trying to preserve. If we don't live and work together, we will most certainly die together. There is no more essential or difficult a lesson to learn.